Welcome to Dayton Warcry Club. I'm Warren, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Zach and Fred. It's been a couple weeks, but we're back. We made a journey to Adepticon a couple weeks ago and have a lot of insights into the tournaments that happened there. Tonight, we'll be talking about how the competitive tournaments played out, including a lot of list talk, and how you might use lessons learned from this event to improve your lists and play. As a bonus, we'll also be recapping the finals of the Saturday tournaments. All right. Hey, good evening, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Yo.
Yeah, I missed chatting with y'all. Adepticon, as of the time we're recording this, was 2 weeks ago, and then I was out of town last weekend as well. So, yeah, we'll get this done here. We'll get this recorded and out, not too late. And then there's more events popping up too. We'll talk about those probably at the tail end.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah, but this is like the first big U.S. Warcry tournament, and it's going to sort of like serve as the basis for some of the other events that are going to be happening over the summertime. But before that, we'll start with our usual hobby update. We'll talk, and I'll give a little bit of like the intro of the tournament about like how it played out, just to kind of give folks a good idea of kind of what to expect. Then I got a whole lot of lists. We may not cover them all, but I have a good deal of interesting lists for us to talk about. And then I also on Discord I live blogged the finals on Saturday, and so I just took my pictures from there and the recap, and we'll kind of just go over the recap there. And then we got some lessons learned for all this.
Fantastic.
So, hobby update. This is Zach's been a busy boy. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so one of my first purchases for Warcry was actually the Shattered Stormvault, and it sat pretty much just primed and like kind of started for a very long time, and I just kind of got the itch and I just knocked it out. I'm not the most happy with it. It's not the perfect color, and if I could, I would just rebase the whole thing and start over, and that might happen at some point in time. But I finished it. It's table ready. It's playable at least. I finished all of the Catacombs Scatter Terrain. I finished an Assault Intercessor Kill Team and 23 Bone Splitters, which is the Headcracker Underworld Warband, and then a whole box of Savage Oryx. So that's a lot.
And 2 Scout Troopers.
Oh yeah, 2 Scout Troopers for Star Wars Legion, and I have started on some Lost Kingdom Seraphon proxies, and I just got the first Salamander done just as like a test run. So not a small number of things painted.
You're like number 2 in the golf score in the golf rankings.
I could easily become number 1 in a few days. Next week I'll be number 1.
Good stuff. Yeah, I don't have anything to add this time around. That looks great. I have had some issues with my hands and haven't been able to paint, but I have been adding to the army list. I have the Idoneth Deepkin start collecting plus the Underworld's Warband, and I picked up the Broken Realms Butcher Herd, which has a bunch of Bulgors in it. So I'm kind of working on expanding out that way. I built the Bulgors, but I haven't been able to paint them yet. So not a great picture to upload, but they'll be, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll have some good stuff to add.
Yeah, knowing you're going to have you'll have that stuff probably knocked out in 2 weeks. Not a lot of hobbying for me. I broke my hobby unstreak last night, starting on the Flesh Beater courts. And those are going pretty quick. My strategy for that is just, do a pretty easy warband just to get a quick win, get back into it, and then kind of work on some of the other projects. I got Skaven, I got some kill team stuff. I'd kind of like to kind of pick up again too. And then also, as always, terrain. But I do have some bonus pictures here. So this is from Adepticon. So just a couple pictures I took from Adepticon. I could have spent the whole weekend just taking pictures of just amazing armies and boards and stuff like that.
Yeah, that stuff's gorgeous. I love the castle. The castle's sweet.
Yeah, it was monstrous. And then I didn't catch a good picture of like all like the tables where the Warcry thing was set up, but they had a lot of terrain there, and it was the AOS group from Madison that had it all. And I think they had something on the order of like 40 tables worth of terrain for Warcry. It was some crazy amount. But here you can see all the stuff sorted out here. Just like tons and tons of, all the identical starter terrain.
Yeah, that's
So
really
is that
cool.
for purchase or for play?
That was for play. That was an AOS club in Madison. Yeah. So in addition to having like multiple tables worth of big hammer scenery, they also had all this Warcry stuff, all painted up to a pretty decent quality.
Yeah, that's very cool. Terrain I can't do it for more than 5 minutes. I get so bored with it. So I'm very impressed with anyone that can stick to these big terrain projects.
So getting into the tournament here, and so first off, we gotta do a few caveats here. So it was people might be thinking, oh hey, we had this is a big Warcry tournament. We can make tier lists based on this, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. There's a few things you have to kind of take into account when we talk about the tournament results here. So first off, it was a very small tournament. Saturday was 14 people. They had a couple no-shows. They had 8 on Sunday, and so those actually, in the grand scheme of things, very, very small tournaments. Very small sample size. There are also a wide variety of lists and experience levels. When we go over into the breakdown, you'll see that. You'll see some of the box war bands in there. Some of them were like literal 1-box war bands. And there was also a wide variety of experience levels too. You had some folks that obviously knew what they were doing. You had some folks that had maybe played once or never played at all. Like literally learning the game at the tournament. So you have a lot of variance there. And then a few other things. So they were using the match play missions minus Forsaken Orrery. So you had, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of those missions there, but I hadn't actually cracked open the table, the Tome of Champions to really dig into the match play missions until Adepticon. And there's quite a bit of depth to them. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those match play missions kind of become the standard for what other tournaments choose to use. And again, this is all like TO dependent. Other TOs may run things differently. Another thing is, and this is probably going to be probably the norm going forward, is no allies. So this sort of changes the game some. It really, for good or bad, right? It sort of lets all of the war bands kind of have keep their individual character and flavor, which is good. But if they're a bad war band, then there's nothing that can really save them, right? You can't just like put Contorted in and be like, okay, I can compete.
And I don't know where I'm remembering this from, but I think I remember the fact that was at Games Workshop's suggestion,
Yes.
which would indicate that that's how they prefer that to be run. Mm-hmm. Probably for the reasons that you listed. I don't know that it's outrageously. Some war bands were built with allies in mind. The one that jumps to the top of my mind is Soulblight Gravelords.
Oh yeah.
Sort of the standard out of the box competitive list was like a bunch of Graveguard and then a Flesh Eater Courts ally to get them moved across the board, which was very good. I played that list a couple of times, and every time you got the deployments to work out where you could do that, it felt amazing. Otherwise, Soul Black Gravelord's heavy hitters like the Graveguard are just really slow. But a lot of the competitive lists, like the higher tier lists, you didn't see an enormous amount of allies in them to begin with. So we'll see. We'll see how it kind of shakes out. It is a big change because, like you said, there are some pieces like the Contorted Epitome, like the High Sentinel, a couple that just have these really unique abilities or stat lines that really add whole new angles to warbands that we're not going to see here. So that's interesting to me, how it affects list building.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of miss, just the having those additional angles. But I believe there's going to be an event at Gen Con, looking to be a one at Origins, possibly two. The TO, he's on Discord, and I think he said that there'll be no allies as well. No allies for Nova, for the NovaCon in September either. So that's pretty much going to be the way it is, and it is what it is. Nova, actually, you're allowed to play up to three thralls out of your Grand Alliance book, though. So that might open up, a little bit of something. It might be something to think about.
I don't play narrative, and I never have. But so I don't know a whole lot about the thralls, if any of them are any good or not. So I'd have to look at that. That's really, I'd never even considered playing with thralls in match play. So
Yeah,
I have no idea if any of those are any good. But that's an interesting way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess the takeaway is, like, there's a lot of stuff in all these books, and some of the stuff that I hadn't looked at really, in depth until recently, and then I'm like, oh, hey, this is interesting.
I mean, narrative looks fun. I just like getting a ton of match play games in every time I sit down. So that's kind of why I like to focus on that. But I see the appeal of narrative, and the systems that are in there, but I don't know much about it. That's
Well, narrative was a blast too. I watched the last couple rounds of the narrative tournament, live blogged a little bit of that as well, and it was like the whole branching thing, and then based on your number of VPs, you got some minor artifact, and then the last round was just a fun round versus like a mega gargant, like 3 or 4 on 1, and then if it was 4 on 1, there was actually additional wandering monsters that would be rolling in, so it was like, it looked pretty wild.
What was I going to say? The narrative is really well supported. There's a ton of material on it. I know a lot of people like to play that way, so I'm interested to see what you saw on that.
Well, maybe I could try and think of how I could do that.
It's definitely on my list of things I want to try, for sure.
That's true. Yeah, like just around here, if we got the time, just fire up a narrative mission, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, so even though it's small tournaments, a lot of lists and experience levels, there were some trends that we could see here, and we can kind of learn from those as well.
Yeah, and we'll get into that obviously as we look at lists, but some really, and I think pretty much the community consensus that I've seen so far on a lot of these lists was really some of the lists that did well were constructed in some really unexpected ways. So I'm looking forward to going through them.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yep. Yeah, there's a few obvious trends and some not so obvious. So if you're new to tournaments, so this is the tournament format. So 4 rounds of Swiss. You're always going to be playing someone with a like record. We talked about the match play missions. And then here's an example of one of the match play missions. So this one is Scour. I saw this one, and this one kind of blew my mind. So this one tended to be a very fast mission because you're just going to take your team and you're just going to run your teams past each other to get to get the escape route and score points. But you also, that's at a glance at the surface, that's what the mission is about. But then if you happen to kill any of your opponent's guys, you get a point, and they don't get the point for escaping. So there's like a 2-point swing there if you murder guys. And so it's now, instead of like running, instead of it being a simple like run everyone across the board at each other, you may want to have some of your big guys split off, murder some little guys, score some points, and then how do you do that? Do you have like your little guys try to fight, get some points, or do you try to run them across the board? And so like that's just an example of like, okay, there's a lot going on for this mission. And I was, this really got me thinking like, okay, we need to I would love to run this run this mission and kind of learn more about it. And then the other thing is the deployments are all set, they're symmetric, the twist goes along with the mission, and so you can't get screwed by the twists or the deployment. So so this is something someplace I want to focus on next is all these different sort of match play missions.
It's also a really interesting idea to maybe write our own missions in this way, where the twist and the deployment go along with it. Like I could imagine building or having some terrain where it's like King of the Hill, and you could write a mission for that. But I can, just looking at this scour map, it's really interesting to me. Like, the person who tries to run too quickly off the board could be wiped out by, having too few guys to fight in the later rounds, and just get wiped out that way. So it's definitely, it looks like an interesting balancing act of scoring the early run through points and having the kill potential still on the board.
Yeah. So the way they're scored, and this is in the book too, this is in the core rule book where it talks about match play. It's 20 points for major win, 15 points for minor win, 5 points for minor loss, 0 points for major loss. And so you figure out, okay, who won? And then if the person that won had more than half their guys left, then it's a major. If they lost half their guys, then it's a minor loss, minor victory. And so that's kind of serves as the first tiebreaker. Your overall match record is probably going to determine the the overall winner, like someone going 4-0. But among the 3-1s, that's going to be sort of your first tiebreaker. It's also possible you could go 4-0 with 4 minor victories, and you could potentially get caught by someone that went 3-1 with 3 major victories and maybe say like a minor loss. So it's there is the potential to kind of jump out of a bracket with this. So even the scoring is interesting. Ties. So I didn't see any ties on Saturday. I heard there were a couple on Sunday though. For the most part, people were able to finish in time, and it was sort of TO discretion there. If you tie due to time or whatever, he sort of like left it to players to either maybe play one more round, or there might have been the potential to like say, all right, split it down the middle, 10 points each. There wasn't really like a set procedure for handling ties during a tie match.
I think putting ties at 10 would be an interesting and reasonable way to handle it.
Yeah. I mean, if it's exactly half the points for winning, I'd be perfectly happy probably taking a tie. It hurts.
It depends on what kind of behavior you want to incentivize. And I think it's important where you don't necessarily want to see people trying to play for the draw. And in a miniatures game, theoretically, you could just running away and running around the battlefield and trying to go to time. So, there's some argument to give 0 points for ties. I know that some Magic tournaments were run that way to prevent intentional draws.
Yep. Legend of the Five Rings had that actually. You had 0 points for a draw, and so you essentially had to have a gentleman's agreement among the two players to give the win to somebody.
Yes. So that's interesting. I'm not a TO. I'm not, but I don't have any experience with that. But I worry that if you make ties too appealing, it's fairly easy to play for a tie in a miniatures game compared to a card game or other types of game. So I'd be worried about over incentivizing those. Like if I have a choice between taking 0 points by playing the game out to its natural conclusion, or 10 points by taking my flyer and putting him where you can't catch him, I'm probably going to do that second one, right? So, I don't know.
I should note it is going to be pretty rare to see, and then also even rarer if you're in a Warcry tournament. Based on the people I saw at the Warcry tournament, even rarer for someone to like scumbag you by playing for a draw or something like that.
Sure, absolutely.
And another tiebreak they used was the hidden agendas, and so those are in the they use the new hidden agendas in the Tome of Champions. You had to pick a hidden agenda every round as well. You couldn't pick the same one more than twice in the tournament, and if you got that was plus 1 point. So not really worth going for just 1 point, but it did serve as like a third or as a second tiebreaker. And then finally, so the pairings worked pretty much as you'd expect. I believe the pairings were paired straight, like top to bottom. They were done by hand for these tournaments. And you pair like 1 versus 2, 2 versus or 3 versus 4, all the way down. I think that's how it's done, how it's usually done in every round. Maybe not the way I would do it, because again, you can, in bigger tournaments and more competitive wargaming tournaments, you can game that system there too. You can take minor wins, which would actually give you a somewhat lower score, even though you're undefeated, to give yourself slightly easier opponents until the final round, to give you the best shot at going undefeated. So one of the way to prevent that would be you just simply do random pairings among everyone with the same record.
Sure. Yeah.
So you just like a Magic tournament, and then in the very final round, you would still pair up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the line. But so I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but the general procedure is just how you'd expect.
Cool. Let's we ready to talk about lists?
Well, here's a breakdown for Saturday.
All right, let's look at it.
So the missions they ran: Hidden Treasures, Scour, Nexus of Power, and Trophy Kills. We had 2 Gets lists, 2 Soulblight Gravelords, and then a smattering of everything else here. And some of these were like 1 box lists, or like 1 box plus maybe a couple extra models. Couple of them had some of the Underworld's models in them, but again, pretty wide variety.
There was a lot of talk on the Discord, especially, but pretty much anywhere people talk about competitive Warcry, I saw a lot of talk about at Adepticon. Is anybody going to show up with a truly busted meta-defining list? And a lot of people thought probably not. That we might not see that kind of thing at a relatively small tournament. People would want to bring models and armies that they enjoyed the most and that they painted the best, and that whatever. There's a lot of different reasons in miniatures gaming to play a faction, but we didn't see any. There's no spiders at all.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is there's no spiders.
If you look at even just these factions without even diving into the lists, probably the closest you would have access to as a pure meta list is ogres, as far as like a top tier band. And I don't know if that one was like the Two Thunderfist meted out list or not. So looks like kind of the general consensus was, some people were saying, I really hope we do see a couple people show up with just like the nastiest possible list, just to get it on record, watch them stomp everybody and see if Games Workshop, if that happens enough, that they'll take action. But nope, people just showed up with lists they wanted to play and had a good time. So
that was pretty much the impression. And Sunday had 3 different Stormcasts. We had Skaven here. We know the Soulblight Gravelords. So Soulblight had probably one of the biggest representations. and actually probably one of the better performances for the weekend.
The list is so deep. Soulblight is
Oh
an
yeah.
insanely deep faction, so I'm not surprised that that's true.
Yep.
And Stormcast, great. I like Stormcast as a list building challenge. It's kind of cool to see a bunch of different approaches to how you would build that, because they're not considered to be super competitive, except for like the bird spam Vanguard, which got nerfed. That's a really diverse list of factions, which is cool.
Yeah, like I wasn't personally interested in Stormcast, but then actually after seeing some of the potential lists, the fact that like they're small elite lists, pretty easy to build. You do have options, right? Some about combination of birds or dogs. You have flyers, you have range guys.
They tend to have a million different types of foot soldier with a different weapon. You can have a spear, a hammer, an axe, a great sword and shield, mason shield, and they all have different attack profiles. They all cost like 180 points, and there's just a ton of different ways to build it, but you're constrained by how elite the factions are. I just think it's an interesting puzzle. It's a lot different than building Skaven or Gloomspite or some of these other factions. You just have to approach it in a different way, which I like.
Well, the different weapons aren't interesting, but I'm like, oh, hey, they got these flyer guys with wings. They look kind of sweet. Or dogs or birds, or crossbows that smash you and stuff like that. It's like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Having put in all the data for every warband, they seem to have some of the heavier damage profiles, especially for ranged units.
Yes.
I want to say than anybody.
You pay for it though.
Oh yeah, I mean, most of your units are going to be 200 points plus.
Yep. And we'll see a couple of successful lists here. And this also sort of remember last time we talked, I was kind of like rating war bands based on like, okay, yeah, you're elite or you're a meme list. Well, turns out I was kind of wrong. Like some of these, there's a lot more of these small elite war bands than we thought, and then the meme lists are maybe not meme lists.
Yeah, let's jump into that. That's a good segue into Thundercats. This list is really fascinating. This was a known quantity. The fact that you could theoretically play this list.
I don't think this was a known quantity. I was this blew my mind because so Justin had played this on Friday as well for the narrative, and I think he won all of his games there too. Even games where he needed objectives, and you would think, okay, there's no way they can win an objective-based game. He somehow was like winnings on some objectives, and he said, okay, well, I had a good time with this. Let's run it back on Sunday, and he did pretty well there.
But by a known quantity, I mean I had seen people discuss, hey, did you know you could just fit 1,000 points as these 4 models? I don't know that anybody was like, hey, you should probably go win a tournament with this. This is going to crack the meta. But the fact that you could put 4 evocators on Draco lines and that would be a whole list.
Like the Storm Fiend meme list.
Yeah, this was a meme list that people knew about. The fact that you could actually win a variety of mission types, I think, is the surprising part to everybody. So just talking about evocators real quick. Evocators hit hard. They do have good damage profiles. They are expensive. And obviously you worry about your activations, but the important thing here to take away, if you are listening and don't know, you haven't delved through all the 10,000 identical looking Stormcast profiles, is that Draco lines aren't mounted. They look like they're mounted.
Right.
They sure do, but they are not mounted units. So these are very mobile. These are basically 10-inch.
They're cats. They can climb.
They can climb. So this is an incredibly mobile list, much more so than like 4 cavalry units that all had the mounted keyword, which would be unplayable. This is 10-inch move with no drawback. They have a ton. They have a ton of wounds. I would say they're probably tankier than they are damagey. But
yeah, they all got 30 wounds. And yeah, there's a little more analysis and interview with Justin that TheSaltySeas did. You know, first obligatory plug for TheSaltySeas videos. He did a couple. He did one on. He posted one Saturday night after the first tournament.
Yeah, where were you on that, Warren? Come on.
I was typing lists. I was typing lists, but I wasn't that far ahead.
So the big takeaway from this list, and I know we have been kicking around internally a tremendous amount of lists inspired by, okay, what can we do? What can other factions do that approximates having 4 big super mobile units? You know, not this exact concept, but like what can you do with this concept? It really is so different from a lot of the other lists that you would consider to be competitive. It's very fast. They have a lot of wounds. They can get to objectives in the first round, and usually they can get to an objective and fight, which is a big advantage. You don't have to double move to get onto your objectives. You can move and fight, so you gain some activation equity back there. Just a very cool list. Obviously beautifully painted too.
Oh yeah, they look fantastic. His basing looks amazing too.
Yep. So this next one is just more of an honorable mention. But I know you guys wanted to see this, and so this is JJ Austrian, and I hung out with JJ Friday night as well. So he's a pretty cool guy. He's got tons of stories. So he played Cogra's Ravagers plus some additional, mostly just additional Marauders, and he did fairly well. I think he went 2-2. He wasn't there to play super seriously, but yeah, he had a pretty good run.
This is a lot. This is pretty close to a list that I had actually played, and I like it a lot. This list, the Kargas Ravagers list, is super fun to play. And again, if you don't have, Tome of Champions or haven't gone through it in fine detail, the big thing this list does is Zarshia, who's the Chaos Sorcerer, can teleport anyone else only in the Kargas Ravagers. They have to have that rune mark. Can teleport them across the battlefield, which lets you take something like a Karga or a Dour Kragan, who are basically like Karga is pretty similar to a Dark Oath War Chief, and the Dour Kragan is an upgraded dual wielding Chaos Warrior. So they fight really well is the point. But they're slow, so you can kind of pick up Karga and just throw her across the board, and it's super fun. It's really cool when it works. My list had a lot less foot soldiers, and it added a Varangard because I like Varangard a lot. But no, super cool list. Also looks great. Super fun to play. I'm glad somebody brought it to the tournament, just because I think it is a cool warband. Not hyper competitive, but has some really cool tricks they can do, and you can kind of throw a big tanky fighter into your face out of nowhere, which is cool.
Yeah, I saw this. I saw JJ. He was playing in the pod for the narrative thing, and he was doing some cool tricks with Zarshia, and Kargra was dealing some damage there too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see, jumping around here. So here we got Riley Bender. So Riley took second place on Saturday, she went 4-0. And this is Squig Hopper spam. But hold on one second. Shout out, and then so she's one half of Swolehammer too. I found this out after the fact. So the Swolehammer channel, put a link there too. They put out a handful of videos. They put out a video blog for the weekend too. So yeah, go ahead.
This takes, obviously it's not inspired by the Thundercats list, but it's really interesting that this is very similar in construction. It obviously has more models, but Squig Hoppers and Squig Hopper Boss is very, very good. It hits pretty hard. It's a 10-inch. These guys, Squig Hoppers, not only move 10, but they also fly. So this list is extremely mobile. It gives up mass amount of nettas, which is a way that this list could be kind of maybe more traditionally built, because netters are very points efficient, and their ability to slow down enemy models is good. But it just crams in more 10-inch flyers. And, there was some talk going into the tournament, like the TOC missions and everything, 10-inch flyers could be very important. And this list has a lot of them. And that's interesting. The Squig Hopper Boss is a monster, and the Squig Hoppers are decent, and you can cover a lot of ground with this list.
So I'm looking at a list of all of Gloomspite gets, and I don't know what you come up with the Squig Hoppers and then the Squig Hopper Boss. I don't think there's anything else besides nettas that you even want to play. Because you get one unit, maybe you get, no, you can get one, you can't get two Shootas, so you don't have that.
Shootas are not, I don't like Shootas. They're very expensive.
You can get one Cave Squig. Nope, you can't get a Cave Squig. So you're pretty much limited to Snurk, Sour Tongue, or Mean Eye.
I just like having 7 bodies.
Yeah, I think nettas is really where it's at.
Well, nettas are great. You would take there are lists relatively competitively constructed Gloomspite gifts that would have 6 or 7 nettas. They're very good. But this trades the ability to spam the board with 7 bodies, which is still pretty reasonable post TOC, but 4 big mobile units. It's not bad. By the way, Snurk is amazing. Me personally, I would play Snurk, but then you'd have 5 bodies, which is a big downgrade.
So you have Squig Herders also at 45 points, and they have the same damage profile, but I'm pretty sure here the factor is locking people down with the nets, as opposed to there's nothing to kind of use the Squig Herders ability on.
Yeah. The lockdown ability, I think, is very good, and you might as well have it than not have it. So,
one other note. So Riley went 4-0 for second place on tie breaks. There should have only been one 4-0, but there was some weirdness going on with pairings done by hand. So that's the reason for that, if you had noticed. So again, sometimes stuff like that happens. I actually caught it because I noticed a mispair at one of the tables. I actually asked the TO. He said that he knew what he was doing, and I didn't press the issue right. I'm just spectating. It's not my not my place to tell the TO he's doing something wrong or something doesn't seem right. But it turns out I was right. So
let posterity show that Warmachine was right.
Put it on the record.
Let the record show.
Absolutely.
I had to get that in. A younger me would have made a bigger deal at the event.
You would have escorted out by security.
Oh yeah, probably. All right, and then so Rafiq, I think Rafiq is the second half Swolehammer, actually. So here's the first of several Gravelord lists.
Let's talk about this Gravelord list, can we?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So Vargoyle, 10-inch flyer.
You're going to see a lot of Vorgils. You're going to see a lot of Vorgils here tonight.
So with the ally list, Vargoyle was considered to be sort of the default leader because Vampire Lords kind of overlapped with your FEC ally as far as abilities go. Like they had an AoE damage buff, but so does the FEC ally. And the FEC ally also brings in like that insane movement buff. So you bring the Vargoyle to add something different, which is a lot of mobility. And Vargoyle's not a bad fighter. He's not a bad fighter. Yeah, he's not like an elite killer, but very solid. I'm not looking at it right now. Is he a 4-4-2-4?
I'm gonna get the book out. I think he's slightly heavier hitter than that.
Maybe he is. Maybe I'm thinking of a Crypt Flare. It's possible.
He's 4-4-2-5 for Vargoyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very solid.
Yeah.
Very solid. But it's interesting to see, bringing in the Vargoyle. I get, obviously, you want the 10-inch flyer and the good attack profile. What really interests me about this list is the Necromancer. That's cool. I like the Necromancer, and the fact that you only see 2 Graveguard is really, really interesting. Just pure model count. Even though you could easily play 4 or 5 Graveguard and still have a decent amount of models. Obviously, this went for really flooding the board. Necromancer has a really good, I want to say it's a really good quad.
Van Hels?
Yeah, the Dance Macabre. It's hard to count on quads, but with this many bodies, I can see the Necromancer really just turning a whole game potentially with a timely quad.
Something that's really hit me on this list is the choice of Deadwalker zombies over skeletons with ancient blades. Skeletons with ancient blades have a better damage profile in general. The big noticeable difference I'm seeing is that Deadwalker zombies have 10 wounds as opposed to 8.
This is putting 90 wounds worth of chaff on the board is what this is all about. It's not like your skeletons, which do have better damage, but they're not going to kill anything, right? Like, we're talking better, like mathematically, but they're not going to actually go out there and take any trophies. But I like skeletons. I play skeletons, but I can see just putting a ton of wounds on the board with this list. Very cool.
I'd be interested to see if this list breaks 200. Might be close to 200 wounds. Probably like 160, 170. I'd have to list it out.
Are you talking about like as a metric for a list?
Yeah, for the whole list.
Tanky, yeah, how tanky a list is.
Yeah, I'm interested.
But very cool. The Necromancer is really something I haven't considered in a long time, but nice to see it here, doing well.
Yep. So the other Soulblight Gravelords player from Saturday also went 3-1.
This is a little more traditional here, as far as a lot of Graveguard. This is more of the Graveguard spam. You still get 10 models, is my point. Like, and this list is nice and fast. You have the 8-inch move with the fly on demand from the Verkos Bloodborne. They can burn a double to basically fly until the end of the battle round. Prince Duval is basically a cheaper Vampire Lord. Doesn't fly, but still has the good attack profile, very tanky. Still moves 5. You 10-inch flyer in the Vargoyle, your 8-inch on the Verkos, and then you just don't worry about the slow Graveguard and Skeleton Warriors. They'll get there when they get there.
Yep. This again, another Vargoyle list, and you're kind of mentioning like how hard the Vargoyle hits. So this is the second list, and then spoiler alert that there's another Soulblight Gravelords list with the Vargoyle as well. It hits hard enough for people to use it. I mean, you get it to where it needs to go, and it can kill. You put it up against the right target, and it'll kill what it needs to kill. So it hits well enough, and this is one of the things I want to kind of talk about at the end, right? When we talk about flyers, like, okay, well, like what's the minimum bar for a flyer that we want to take, or you want to take a slightly more killy flyer, and the drawbacks in that as we build lists.
Absolutely, yeah. We had talked about that a little bit. If you are going to bring your 10-inch flyer, if you consider that to be sort of a slot that you want to fill in a warband whenever possible, they're not all created equal, right? Some of them are just fast glass, not even glass cannons, just fast, fragile units. Some of them are very, very killy. You're talking about like your Crypt Infernals. And some of them are kind of in the middle, and the Vargoyle leans more towards the heavy hitter. But you want to make sure you put it in a position to succeed. It's not going to kill a rat ogre. It's not going to kill a storm fiend. It's not going to kill an ogre. But it can pick its fights, and it'll kill a lot of units. And you get to kind of choose where it's going to swoop in and do that. So it's a good model. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not that tyrant on the battlefield.
Okay.
I just love Soulblight Gravelords. They have so many cool options.
Oh yeah. No, I got my 2 flying Flesh Eater Courts guys, and so I could use one of them as a Vargoyle for when I get into Soulblight, or I could, just have a nice looking Vargoyle, slightly different paint scheme, I might just pick up another one.
Oh.
I'm probably in the works for some Vargoyles at some point in time. At least the
So we'll split a box there. All right, so this is the Salty Sea. I spent a lot of time hanging out with him. A great guy, by the way. So he went 3-1 on Sunday. He lost to a different Soulblight's Gravelord player, but then he won out from there. And so he did his tournament report there. So this is his list. I didn't get a picture of his army, but I did catch it in action. So he actually moved a Stormfiend right on the deployment point for Night Haunt, just to guarantee he was going to get in a fight.
Yep.
Which I thought was a pretty cool move.
The Stormfiend with Grinder Fist is a monster. I mean, that is just a monster unit. Glad to see it here. I know that the reason he gave in his video that he played it was that rat ogres just have ugly sculpts and Stormfiends look cool.
Yeah.
But it's not like Stormfiends are bad. If rat ogres didn't exist, we wouldn't have noticed their absence, because Stormfiends would just slot right in. They would have always been perfectly playable heavy hitter for Skaven. You wouldn't be like, man, I wish there was just an even more insane model than this, But the fact that rat ogres are so incredibly undercosted, they're better, but Stormfiends are still very good. I love them. I have my 3 Stormfiend list that I love to play, but this is a cool list. It's got the murder ball of plague monks. It's got giant rats to run around and do what you need them to do, and then of course has the insane heavy hitting Stormfiend. Very well rounded list.
Yeah, I have Censer Bearers built. I'm personally not a believer in Censer Bearer, but I had enough Plague Monks left over that I kit bashed some Censer Bearers just for something different. The range 3 is good. I'm not a big fan of the special on it. I like Plague Priest. The Plague Priest model is cool. I probably eventually want to get one just to have the model in my collection. But you guys know me. I'm a big fan of the Packmaster cracking the whip.
Yes.
So I'm more of a Master Molder guy. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with Skaven.
Yes, it is.
And then this is great picture of the terrain too, by the way.
Yes, very nice looking.
Okay,
Hey, look at this.
More Soulblight Gravelords. So Shane had the Underworld's Warbands models. So he used some of those the cheap chaff units.
The Sepulchral.
Yep, Sepulchral Guard. Yep.
This is conceptually similar to the list we talked about in our previous video, where I was listing the various different kind of fringe Soulblight list, like how far can you push it in a variety of different directions. And I had one that was like a whole bunch of skeletons, and it used the Sepulchral Guard units in there a lot. And it was not this list, but this is similar to kind of what I was considering to be a direction you could go with Soulblight, which is just a tremendous amount of skeletons. And I like it a lot. It's slow, but you have your Vargoyle and your Verkos to get there quickly.
You got your speed there.
And nothing wants to tangle with 6 Graveguard. Like that's insane. That's so much damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still get 12 models.
Yeah. Salty played this guy round 1. And I was thinking to myself, okay, whoever wins this match is probably going to go 4-0 and win this tournament. It actually turned out not to be the case, though.
I like this list a lot.
Yeah, but based on what I had seen about how Soulblight had performed on Saturday with the Vargoyle, he seemed to have all the pieces, the body count, the speed to take it all. I
mean, the fact that Graveguard got through Toma Champions and we're still 70 points apiece is crazy. That the model is so good for 70 points. It's slow. The other thing to take away from this warband here is out of its 12 models, 10 of them are move 3, which is interesting. Without a big movement buff, they have the Shambling Horde ability, and I know that the Sepulchral Guard have a charge they can do, but it's a 3-inch charge. It's a movement. It's not a tremendous amount of movement buff. But we're seeing these lists without the FEC ally still putting a lot of 3-inch move on the board and competing, which is cool.
That is interesting.
I mean, it helps when you're so efficient in the Graveguard. And of course, it helps that you can have a 10-inch flyer and an 8-inch super fast model to do the fast stuff. But still, 10 3-inch move models at 3-1 is cool.
All right, next up. So now we got just a few other grab bag things that you guys had requested. So we got a couple of the other Stormcast lists.
Just a quick correction: Vargoyles are an 8-inch flyer, I think.
You might be right.
Up now, yeah.
I might be thinking again. I get them mixed up with Crypt Flayers a lot, but a very fast flyer.
It is close enough.
Very close, yeah. I wasn't not giving anybody any guff.
You are
right.
technically correct. The best kind of
correct. Yes. And this will happen many times as we continue to record videos where I will refer to them by each other's stat lines between the Crypt Flayer and the Vargoyle. But cool list. Knight Zephyros is a super sweet model. You were talking about the winged Stormcast, and
this does just a lot of stuff, right? It's got flyers. It's got
a lot of
It's got ranged. It's got a menagerie.
The Hurricane crossbows are pretty good. They put out a lot of damage. Zephyros is the melee one of the Flying Knights. There's a pair of them. There's the
I have no idea. So I didn't have my books with me, and so if someone was playing an Order Warband or a Destruction Warband, I actually had to ask some people, what is that? Okay, because I didn't know how to identify the models. So that's one thing that I learned along the way was, okay, yeah, I really should learn what all the models are available to all the factions. Don't just ignore Order.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good factions in Order. Not a lot of Daughters of Cain. We didn't see any Daughters of Cain, did we?
No. No Daughters of Cain.
The Knight Zephyros. The Knight Zephyros is actually, I'm sorry, he's not one of the flying ones. Knight Zephyros is a 5-inch move. Combo can shoot, has a pistol, an 8-inch range pistol, and then a 4-4-2-4 attack profile.
Wait, he doesn't. He doesn't fly. Okay.
That's the Zephyros.
Okay. I thought he was a flyer.
Zephyros is not.
I'll defer back to Salty's video on that one then. So because actually Salty played her and had the picture and the rundown on that. So
okay. No,
I stand by my notes about 98% of my notes.
It's definitely a Knight Zephyros because the points don't work out otherwise, and Zephyros does not fly. Moves 5.
Okay.
The Venator and the Azeros are the flyers.
I had it mixed up with something from the next warband actually.
Okay.
That's why.
But
see, I can't tell this stuff apart.
Vanguard Raptors are good. Hurricane crossbows are good. Griffhounds are very good, and either wings, even after the nerf, you're not going to see like 10 of them anymore or anything. But that still moves 12 and flies for 65 points. So list has a lot of functionality to it.
Yeah, something good to kind of fill out your points.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's another Vanguard list. So this is a flyer plus Griffhound. So this is just all speed.
Yeah, and it's not like the Azeros is like just like a glassy. It has 30 wounds, 5 toughness, and does 4-4-2-4 attack profile with a 10-inch fly. So a tanky unit, decent unit to get in there with. This is a lot of Griffhounds. The thing about Griffhounds is one of the things that makes them good is they're triple, and you're not going to get to use more than one triple in a round. So otherwise, they're just like move 5, 2-4 damage profile units. But still, they're 150 points. You're not going to get cheaper than that, really.
Nope.
Much in Vanguard, so I can see filling it out that way.
I think it's interesting that there was a lack of ranged options in the chaff of that list. It was just Griffhounds.
Vanguard, their ranged options tend to be kind of expensive for decent ranged options. So I'm sure that's influential there. But yeah, they're just going to get into combat. The Griffhounds move 5, and the Azeroses are move 10 flyers. So they're just probably going to get in your face a little bit.
So we had a request also to see the Seraphon list. So this has some range. This has a little bit of movement.
Yeah, got some decent shooters, 2 handlers, and a Salamander and a Razordon.
So I think it's interesting that they went with a Razordon and a Salamander instead of 2 of either option. I prefer the Salamanders in the list I'm putting together.
Yeah, I kind of like what he did, having like different stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The cold one, the Scar Veteran on a cold one, I don't know how hard he hits, but he obviously moves fast.
He's kind of a traditional Warcry cavalry unit, meaning that relatively fast and tanky with low damage.
Yeah, okay. He's got 7 movement, 5 toughness. Damage profile is 4 attacks, 4 strength, 2-4 damage profile.
4-4-2-4.
32 wounds for 220. So
very tanky, decent damage. That's a Scar Veteran. I was thinking of the troop unit, the Knight, on the cold one, which I think they do 1-4. They don't do a lot of damage, but they're also tanky.
So to the Salamander and Razordon, you do lose about 5 inches between them. So the Salamander has range 7, Razor Dawn has range 12. The difference is the Salamander is going to have just 2 attacks, but the damage profile is 2/5, whereas the Razor Dawn has 5 attacks, but it's 1/3 on the damage profile. But it's also a, what is it, 45-point difference.
Mm-hmm.
So if he had run another Salamander, he could have run another Skink Handler. That's just my preference. I mean, it seemed to work for him, and it's a good 1,000-point list.
Yeah, I did.
10 models.
I did ask him because when we were brainstorming with Salamander spam, right, we had like a bunch of Skink Handlers, and I thought that he had more Skink Handlers than he did. But then, Josh was kind enough to share his list with me. Yeah, he had just paired up 1 Skink Handler per beast, and then everything else was skinks with blowpipes, because I didn't recognize everything off the top of my head. Yeah, I was writing stuff down and trying to make sure the points all started added up to cross check it.
Yeah, so I mean, if you had more Skink Handlers, you're going to have more opportunities to use the Skink Handler double to get another attack activation out of either your Razor Dawn or Salamander. And they are actually one of the they are the most point efficient damage unit, because they're the 45-point unit.
Yeah, they're the super cheap ones. Yeah.
So before we get to the finale here, though, any other requests from the breakdown? We got 2 more to go, but I didn't do all the lists.
Now let's see the next 2.
Let's press. All right, so here we go. We got Beast of Chaos.
There we go.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So I took a picture, but the picture was blurry and obviously didn't do it justice. So plug for Darcy. Darcy Bono Creations on Instagram and all the socials. She is a professional painter. So yeah, great looking warband. She also won Best Painted on Friday with her Gloomspite Gits as well.
The list is obviously beautiful. It does some things that we had sort of talked about. The Doom Bull, even after its nerf, is still very, very good. Just one of the true heavy hitters in the game. Even at 280 points, still does a lot of good damage per point. The Cockatrice is your option for a 10-inch flyer, and it also hits pretty hard.
Yeah, I saw it do some work.
Love seeing the Dragon Ogre here. I love Dragon Ogres. That could also be a Doom Bull, which we've talked about a lot. The various options for Doom Bulls.
The Blood Kind.
I'm sorry. The
Blood Kind Bulgor.
The Bulgor. The Bulgor. It could be a Bulgor with paired axes at that same point cost, I'm fairly sure. And then the shieldless spear Ungors. Just a good list. I like it a lot. It has heavy hitters and it has bodies.
Yep, good model count.
Yep.
The dedication of having your own diorama that you just travel with for your warband with matching like terrain basing it's just gorgeous.
It really is nice. I mean, it looks really good.
There was a fair number of AOS players that had similar setups for their big hammer AOS armies too. And I think if you're actually getting judged on painting, that's one of the ways you can earn the points is by building a display stand. Again, I'm not super hard into the hobby and stuff like that. Just me personally, I feel stressed out, kind of like, okay, I need to have like my 15 pieces of flair on my warband.
Yeah.
I'm not about that, but I got just crazy respect for the people that can do stuff like this.
Absolutely. So just to compare notes here, we were talking about Bulgor versus Dragon Ogre. That's a Dragon Ogre with a glaive.
Correct.
So the it is the same amount of points as a Bulgor with paired axes. So a Dragon Ogre with a glaive is 4425 range 2.
Yep.
But it moves 6. And the Bulgor with paired axes, you trade the range, and it's a range 1. You can pick up an extra point of strength, lose a point of movement, and you lose a top crit point of damage. So in that space, the Dragon Ogre is probably more point efficient.
So I was thinking the same thing, but I was thinking about Dragon Ogre with 2 weapons.
Yeah, this is a 2-hander. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dragon Ogre with 2 weapons rolls a few more dice as well. I think Darcy wanted the range here. I think that's what she talked about that with Salty in the interview
Because
that she did with him.
Yeah, and because that's interesting because she actually had the points to upgrade to pair of ancient weapons because it's only 5 points and she had 5 points to spare. So that was a conscious decision to go with the glaive over the paired weapons, even though she had the points to spend. So yeah, that it's must be the reason there.
Yeah, when we get to the breakdown for this little battle report too, she definitely knew what she was doing here.
Good list.
And then our winner from Saturday. So this is Kyle Sylvaneth. So this is the what's his face? Skaith's Wild Hunt plus some additional models. And so I did this one a little bit different here. Here I actually had the breakdown for what he put in the dagger, hammer, and shield, and this is important. We'll kind of get to this as one of the points here. But up until now, I've been writing down all the lists and just writing down, all right, this is whatever, 6 Graveguard, however many models. And, kind of leave it to the reader or the listener to figure out, oh, okay, this is how I'm going to set up my deployment groups. Okay, hammer, dagger, shield, right? I'm going to skimp a little bit on the hammer. I'll put some mobility in the hammer because it's going to come on late. But chatting with Kyle knew exactly what he was doing. He looked at the mission sets and figured, okay, yep, for this mission, like my game plan is I know for this mission, my hammer is starting on the board in this position near an objective. So what do I need to have? What do I need to have in this deployment group? Or for this mission, I know that my dagger is going to be here. What do I need to have in this? And so this equal spread, tons of mobility, tons of range damage, tricks and stuff like that. And so even though, I don't think anything of this stuff hits super hard.
Kurnoth Hunters hit fairly hard.
Okay, but for the most part, it's obvious. Real finesse list, like getting to where you need to go, jumping around the board, and killing what you need. Killing what you need to kill.
Skaith is a cool model. Moves 8, has a ranged attack. Tree Revenants can teleport. One of the Skaith's Hunters, I don't know which one it is here, has the AoE damage buff that it can do.
It's Carthane, yeah. Carthane's the Hornblower.
Okay, yeah. The Arc Revenant is the flyer.
Yep.
Yes. And the Kurnoth Hunter is the heavy hitter. It has 3 attacks, 4 strength for 3/6, and has a 2-inch range on that attack as well. So that's sort of your fight. It's 30 wounds. That's the guy that's going to wade in and actually like do the killing a lot of the time, I think.
I feel like that's a really point efficient model at 195 points.
Yeah, Kurnoth
for 3/6, yeah.
Yeah, Kurnoth Hunters have been good. They just are generally good. The ones with great swords are pretty decent too. But the scythe ones are cool. Yeah, just the coolest.
Skaith is one of those little centaur things, right? So she's got like a high move too, right?
Moves 8. I want to say Skaith moves 8. Mounted. which is a downside.
You can get away with, but yeah, you can get away with like if the rest of your warband like this flies or is mobile or has range or projection, you can probably get away with like a single mounted guy.
Oh, sure, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Your tree revenants are super cheap. Plus, they can teleport. There's one of those per deployment group, so you're always going to have one on the board. Just a really well built, well considered list here. You get 9 models with all this versatility and speed and good abilities. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about Skaith, the box, and the fact that it was really different from what Sylvaneth had before, and it's kind of cool to see a list built around it do really well.
All right, so here we got a mini report. So, so this was the final round on Saturday. So this was Darcy on Beast of Chaos versus Kyle Sylvaneth that we just saw. Here at the description of the scenario here. So it's not just killing. Trophy kills rewards careful killing. You're not going to win if you kill a lot of models every turn. Let me go back. If you're not careful with the way you kill models, say you kill a bunch of models on one turn, you win 1 round, but there's a total of 4 rounds where you need to be killing models. And so you almost have, it may be advantageous here sometimes to say, all right, you know what, I'm not going to kill this guy this turn because I already have this round 1. I'm going to kill this guy the next turn because I need the points there for this round. So there's a lot more subtlety into this, and being able to kind of pick your targets and kill something at the drop of a hat is very valuable here.
So when you play this, do you have to does your opponent have your points available to them?
I think they always do.
Yeah, that's a good question. Some people brought printouts of extra copies of all of their lists, and they would give a copy of their list to their opponent. I would say that's the best practice if you're going to one of these tournaments. If everyone did that, then there'd be I think everything would kind of just go smoother. That way you're like, okay, what's this guy's toughness? You kind of know at a glance, and there's fewer like there's like fewer like gotcha moments. You're not required to. So that's the best practice. Other than that, you kind of have to say, all right, you either have to know or like be asking, okay, this guy's a 50, this guy's an 80. That definitely knowing the point values comes into play. And so I'll say this as well. So I watched this, and you know how you sometimes when you're watching 2 people play a game and you know that they both know their stuff. They're playing like really, really tight.
Yeah.
That's what this game was. There wasn't a lot of hesitation or be like, oh man, or not knowing what was going on. There was a lot of like just good communication between the 2 of them, like moving with intent, saying, all right, I would like to move this guy here, within 1.5 inches of this guy. Do I have this move? And them saying yes or no, thinking ahead on moves, saying, hey, I want to move here. No, wait, I don't want to move here because this puts me in charge range of this. Thinking ahead, because you're going to see a lot of back and forth here, a lot of reactionary stuff. And I'm just taking pictures and taking some high level notes in this. I'm not stopping for any action or stopping them for any action or to answer any questions or anything else like this. But this went by like super quick, super tight. It was like amazing to see. So now you kind of know what this is about. It's 4 rounds. You need to kill more points worth each round. There's a bonus point for taking the leader down too. So round 1, here we see the cockatrice in action. I need a pointer here. So cockatrice started way over here and like flies across and murders a chaff model. And so usually round 1 in the games we've played, there's usually not much fighting and happening at all round one.
Rarely
Maybe
any killing.
right, yeah, rarely any killing, but cockatrice, ship it across the board, get the job done, get on the board early. I think some of the other match play missions also sort of reward this to where, like, you know, if you can get ahead early and then protect that lead, like maybe some of the objective missions or something like that. Well, I think that's gonna be the key to victory. And so Darcy saw this opportunity, and then she went for it. You can see the other guy. He ran away. He's just hiding up here now, up on the clock tower. That's the other guy, and then the other guy, he's just sitting here. So Beast of Chaos up 3-0 here for winning the first round. So round two. So this gets wild. So the cockatrice rampages away because here you see we have this whole deployment group that's going to come in around the cockatrice. So things are going to get bad there. So cockatrice rampages away. A lot of skillful use of rampage and onslaught, like maximizing the use of them. So using the rampage for the free move. With the rampage, with the free move and the cockatrice, I think probably a disengage out of there before getting over there into the other deployment group. And so that was like the very first move. And then the next move right after that, Arch Revenant burns a rampage as well, chasing after the cockatrice. And then for the rest of this round, everyone's trying to take down the cockatrice. They throw the kitchen sink at it. Cockatrice survives the turn at 1 hit point. And then there's some other chip damage going around, but really no one else engaged. So at the end of round two, the beasts are still up 3-0. But again, really exciting stuff here. So next round, Revenant happens to finish up Cockatrice with the Alb of Onslaught, get an extra die on there. So Cockatrice is down. There's a 230 point, I think it's 230 point on the turn there. Doombull comes in. Doombull wipes a Revenant out. You get some other fighting here. One of the Gores survives at 1 hit point and retreats, and he actually retreats back behind this ruin here. So again, you have a lot of these, when you're doing the math on figuring out, like, okay, what's the chance of killing something, right? Sometimes almost the worst case scenario is something living at 1 hit point, because again, another activation, back in this other turn here, right? The cockatrice surviving the turn, that would have swung the game real hard earlier. There's another 1 hit point, clutch survival here too. So, but now at the end of round 3, we're tied 3-3 and on the number of rounds here. So then, final round here. So Doombull Onslaughts versus Scathe, trying to take Scathe out. Scathe lives at 1 hit point. So Scathe lives. So Scathe gets an activation off. Scathe rampages away. So again, using the free move from there to get in position. And Scathe has a ranged attack too, right? With that spear, I believe.
Yep.
So Scathe's able to
range, I think.
So Scathe is able to shoot that wounded Gore here and take that out. And so Scathe is pretty close to, like, out of danger now. This is the previous picture. I think Scathe moved around. Scathe got even further out of the way here. So Scathe was kind of untouchable, but was able to kill that last Gore. Carthan, the Hornblower, goes down. There's 80 points, but then Kyle's able to take out a second Gore. So 2 Gores, that gives him 110 points worth of kills for the round, and so he wins 6-3 actually, or 2-1 in terms of rounds. So that was the finals of Saturday's tournament. And again, this my pictures and the rundown don't necessarily do it justice, but to watch this, I learned a ton by like watching this tournament, and just a ton just by watching this game.
Good stuff. Man, that's disappointing that Doom Bull didn't finish off Scathe. The Doom Bull, you really expect it to kill what you pointed at, and the one hit point, that's the whole match right there.
Especially blowing Onslaught to really go for the kill and just come up 1 point short.
Yep. That was the match.
I don't know what the odds were. Never tell me the odds, but
I would say that mathematically you would expect the Doom Bull to kill Scathe there.
Well, Scathe is how many hit points does Scathe have though? I don't have it.
Not a ton. It's not in Battlescribe yet, so I don't have the book in front of me, but it's not
Give me 1 second.
I get the book. Scathe has 22.
Yeah. Scathe has 22 hit points, and the Doom Bull does roughly, if you crunch the numbers, 1 trillion damage. So that's a lot of intense, just razor thin margins in this match. Very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have gone. Yeah, easily could have gone either way here, I think. So, what did we learn? What did I learn? So the tourney scene is fairly new, right? I mean, the game came out in 2019, but then the pandemic happened. But again, super friendly people. Super friendly. People just like playing the game. The match play mission emphasis we kind of talked about. Again, I would like to really kind of do more, like play more of those match play missions just to kind of get a feel for them. I would be even willing to be like, again, if we had the time, more deep dives in some of the match play missions, right? We'd just do it, talk about one of the match play missions and then do a couple tournament reports on those.
Well, they seem to alleviate one of the core problems of open play, which is getting Warcry.
Yeah.
Because the twist is tailored to the scenario, and if you know the whole game, how it's what you're coming to play, you can bring a list that's tailored to play that game, but you know that your opponent is also bringing a list tailored to play that game. So you're both coming to the table, coming to play the same game with the knowledge of what you're playing, and you're really going to be firing on all cylinders playing in that way, as opposed to coming to the table just unprepared for whatever scenario you draw.
Also, the difference between 4 rounds and 3 rounds is enormous.
Huge.
It's a completely different way to approach the game. So, a lot of interesting stuff. That would be on my list of stuff I'd like to do some episodes on. I also want to do our Boogeyman event at some point where we just play like
some top tier ones versus each other.
Spider spam versus Pokraut spam versus that kind of round robin, and just sort of see how these lists play out.
Well, yeah, I'm getting an itch to play Skaven now, so
yeah. Spiders, I got spiders. They're just sitting around waiting for action. So,
yep. And then a lot of different words that kind of for the same concept, right? Of mobility, range, power projection, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and also some branch of theory that has to look at activation economy or activation efficiency as opposed to just raw number of activations, because we saw lists with 4, 5, 6 models do fairly well. So an activation is not necessarily equal to an activation. Some units are getting much more value out of that, and I think that's where that's balancing out. Just a lot of really interesting things to think about. The list that did well, all were very mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, we've been talking about that a lot. Like, okay, how do I go in here and fit an extra eel into IDNF? How do I maximize my flyers in FEC? All this kind of stuff is really something to look at.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then part of it's, kind of looking at the flyers again, trying to figure out, okay, the yardstick, kind of get a better idea for like, what's the yardstick for a strong flyer. The 4424 that we talked about, that being like the baseline, and then anything above that is, being gravy. You may be, 4424, I think you were saying in group chat, Fred. 4424, you could use that. You could probably use that to kill a chaff model. But anything bigger than that, you need a bring a bigger stick.
Yes. I mean, and they can brawl, right? You get a couple of crits and you're starting to do damage, but like a Crypt Infernal has like what 40 hit points.
Yeah.
Like if you're bringing a 4424 to that fight, like you're not gonna just swoop in and assassinate it. That's just not what that model is going to be for. It's not. Right. It's going to want to avoid the Crypt Infernal courtier, not engage it. So just because you both have 10-inch flyers on the board doesn't mean they're assuming the same or even similar roles. If I'm bringing out a Crypt Infernal courtier at 320 points or whatever it costs, I'm looking to go where the fighting is the fiercest and drop in and win a fight. If I'm bringing in a unit that's below that tier, I'm looking to stay the heck away from the Crypt Infernal and pick off the weaker units or grab the objective and run away. And I think that's really important because those models are fairly critical to how a lot of these scenarios play out. Is how you get the most efficiency out of your really mobile units, and misassigning your role in that and losing that mobile unit or not getting full efficiency out of it is going to be really a big problem.
Yeah, it's all about those matchups.
Yes.
So the other thing when it comes to list building, I was, if you wanted to, take a very simplified view of list building like I was doing, right? I'm like, okay, take a leader, 2 big guys if I can fit them, maybe an enabler. If there's overlap, then good, and then fill it up with chaff to maximize your model count. Now, and what we've been kind of chatting about here is, okay, what factions can we do something like that, that kind of mirror what some of these good lists have done. So, what factions can I get like 2 fairly decent sized flyers, maybe even 3, and then some good chaff. And so you guys were kind of brainstorming on the Deepkin. I was looking at Tzeentch Mortals with Aviarchs on discs.
Yeah. Zangers are really good too. I think there's something there in that faction to really kind of do a real deep dive into that I just haven't done yet. But I think you've got a lot of tools there for sure.
I'll probably look to round out my Seraphon with some Pterodons at some
Again,
point.
And those do different things, right? Like a
Yeah.
Pterodon is not a Crypt Flayer or a Retributor or some of these heavy hitters, but they certainly add a lot of utility to what you're doing. So, you can still get a lot of use out of it, but it's not going to be, I'm going to land here and just bring it on. That's not what they do.
For sure.
But they certainly get across the battlefield.
Yep.
And then the last thing is, your deployment groups matter. You don't just pick them willy-nilly. If you want to be very purposeful, you can look at the mission types, and it's going to save you time. You're already going to have a game plan based on a well-chosen set of deployment groups. And then having a good flexible list, with maybe some of that power protection, you can adjust your game plan on the fly. You see, okay, yep, his dagger, he loaded his shield. Okay, I need to kind of like adjust my game plan based on that. I think it's something that I had overlooked. And it's one of those but it's one of those little details that if you want to get better at the game, you shouldn't overlook it. It's kind of like, learning how to build a good sideboard plan, a good cohesive sideboard plan in Magic, or learning how to mulligan. Like these other small things they're kind of outside the main part of the game, but you can absolutely kind of do this prep work ahead of time, and get better.
It's free equity, right? It's like it doesn't cost points, it doesn't cost models. It just you learn it and you get match win percentage out of it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't cost any resources except your time outside of the game. So as far as the game goes, it's free. and you really want to wring that out. And I certainly will admit that I am not the best deployment group builder. It's an area I look to improve on, but you're absolutely right. It's not going to decide matches on its own, but there are definitely games you're going to play where if you make a mistake in your deployment groups, you will lose that game.
Yeah, well, you also have to kind of have an idea like what the mission pack is. This was an unknown. Like no one knew going into Adepticon like what the tournament, how it was going to be run, what the missions were going to be. Now that we do though, and now that we have some other TOs that are out there, we know who the TOs are going to be for the next tournaments coming up. They're going to get a mission pack out. All this we'll know this stuff ahead of time. So definitely better opportunities to prepare going forward.
Absolutely. Well, we are running like this is a long episode, so
like an hour and a half. Yep. Yeah. So, you're turning into a pumpkin. Next episode, Fred, we're gonna need you and Dave. We're gonna finally talk about this battle report. This has been ready to go. So at your convenience or Dave's, we can record this one too.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. We got some interesting games in, and it's less about the results of the game and more about some of the ways they played out that are really interesting to me. Because it was one of the groups was a one box band and the other two were somewhat optimized, but they played out in interesting ways, and some of the missions and the deployments and stuff ended up creating some really interesting gameplay. So I'm excited to talk about those.
Yeah, but keep that in mind. Let me know next time you're free. You've got like an hour free. Dave's pretty much free anytime. We could get that one recorded in the can and get that one out there too.
Sounds good.
And then also we'll be playing some. Zach, we still good for your house next Friday?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I'd be interested to try some of these other forms of play outside of open.
Yep.
And hopefully my buddy Joel's coming over and we might get a Legion skirmish in, which will be my first time playing Legion, which is also very exciting considering I've painted up a full Imperial army at this point and I haven't played the game yet.
Yep.
Good stuff.
2 weeks after that, at the end of the month, my brother's in town, and he's cool with the learning Warcry. So we're gonna do another Friday night meetup then too at the end of the month on the 29th or whenever it is.
Sounds good. I absolutely have to jump off here though, so I'm gonna run. And good times. I appreciate everyone's time, and it was a lot of good information to discuss. The game's in a really interesting spot right now. It's a really exciting time to be a part of it.
All right, so that was Fred Shred, and we are Dayton Warcry Club. You can find us at tinyurl/Dayton Warcry Club. If you haven't given us a sub yet, please give us a sub. We hit that magic 100 number, we can get our own YouTube channel name. On Twitter at Dayton Warcry. Our resident Redditor is Zach Yawgmoth for Prez, and you can also find us on the Warcry official Discord. I'm War Machine.
I'm Yawgmoth for Prez.
And I'm Fred Shred.
All right, have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Dun 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 dun. Some dead air that I'm going to cut out here.
Who's going to get to it first?
And I'll just edit out the dead air. Haha.